Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Value Added, the real estate podcast. On today's episode, we're chatting with Justin Breen. Justin is the founder and CEO of Chicago-based BrEpic Communications. Justin has over 20 years of experience in the media industry. He's won dozens of editing and writing awards, and he's the author of countless viral stories. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Value Added, the real estate podcast where we speak with the brightest minds in the world of real estate who provide, create, and realize value in an ever-changing market. And now your host, Nick Walters.
We watched the NCAA tournament in Vegas, and I don't know why, but when Mississippi State was playing, we always called them Ole Miss. As I don't know why. It has nothing. It's completely ridiculous and wrong. But every time I see a Mississippi State, I think Dak Prescott, and I think of Ole Miss, even though it's completely not Ole Miss.
Well, those are two very common associations with Mississippi State, but yeah, I get it too. And also being from Connecticut, I was out of my element, but it was an awesome 4.5 years, and yeah, we call it the school up Jersey.
Got it.
Yeah, but yeah, well, you're a college football fan, so
I was a sports editor for a long time. So
all right. Now, yeah. So who is Justin Breen? You've got a wealth of experience in the media world. Let's start off, with your journalism career way back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I've been a journalist since I was 6 months old, maybe. One of the first photos of me sitting on my lap reading the Chicago Sun-Times on my mom's lap and reading a newspaper. So I just have stories in me. I've always had them in me. And so
you're a storyteller, whether you're putting it out, no matter the medium, you're a storyteller. Yeah. Yeah,
and this is recording, and this is what will air. I just want to make because I want to make sure, so you understand, there's just a story inside me. It's in my blood, and my dad was 61 when I was born, so he was a soldier in World War II. He was an attorney in the Nuremberg trials, and so he kept a diary when he was fighting in the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest. Which was a very, very bloody, dangerous battle. And so he kept this diary when he was sleeping in a foxhole, or rain was pounding down on him, or he was, mortars were getting fired at him. And so I found that diary after he died. He died when I was 13. And so I found it after that, and I write exactly like he does. Exactly. The words are different because, people don't use the word Krauts and doughboys anymore, but it's the same boom, 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 inform and entertain. So it's just in my blood at the highest level. So
cool. So when did you get out of print media and into more the digital platforms?
Yeah, that's a good question. No one ever asks me that. So I've had every job imaginable. As a journalist, they never knew what to do with me because I was entrepreneurial minded. So they'd give me sports editor / photo editor job. That makes no sense. Or assistant managing editor for content. But so this is another good story. I was the editor in chief at the Rapid City Journal, which is by Mount Rushmore. And I was there on an interim capacity, and they offered me the full-time job. And I was going to take it. And so my wife was in the Chicago area at the time, and then I was working there. And so she flew to visit me, and I was literally about to tell her that I wanted to take the job, and she gave me a card. And I opened it up, and there was a little apple seed in it. And I go, "What is that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's your child. That's the size of your child right now. We're going to have a baby." And so that was one of the most interesting moments of my life because it was ecstatic joy. And also I'm like, bleep, there's no chance I can take this job right now. And so at the time we were living in the northern neighborhood of Chicago. She was working by Great America, which is an hour and a half north, and I was working in Northwest Indiana, which was an hour and a half south. So I had to figure something out. So there was a startup that came to Chicago at the time. It was called DNA Info, and it was all digital. And I was very fortunate to get that job as a senior editor. That was in 2012. And so if I hadn't gotten that job, I don't know what I would have done, because we were having a baby and we were going to move up closer to her job further north, and I could not have continued to work further south. So it all happened for a reason.
So let's get down into the nitty-gritty of what you do. You tell stories on behalf of your clients that you represent. How is your current firm, the stories that you tell, how are they relatable to, this being a real estate centric podcast? There's stories to be told in every industry. How does it really specifically relate to the real estate world?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's a good landing the plane question. And I'm always flying the plane, but I will land the plane. And so nobody cares about what you do. They care about who you are. I was a journalist for 20 years. I created my entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years with useless press releases, because nobody cares about what you do. They only care about who you are. But if they care about who you are, they will care about what you do. So I created my entire business model based on being annoyed. And now I have a global company that works with the top mindsets and brands in the world. I was just annoyed, so I created a solution to that. So I'm 100% simplifier, 100%. I can hear blah, 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 and turn it into a 500-word story that media really wants to do and the public cares about. And so this is all media needs. Okay, simplifier and patterns. This is it. One is a good story. Everyone has that. What you've overcome in life, what makes you cool, something interesting, whatever. And then 2 is a news peg. A news peg is, why is it a story now? So real estate has endless news pegs, because real estate's constantly doing cool things like building a new project. You sold a house, celebrity lost $1 million when they sold their, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's that, but real estate is endless news pegs, endless. So that's how it applies.
Explain a news peg. I've never heard that term before.
Right, because in terms of connecting people on a global level and getting people news at the highest level, there are very few people in the world that are better at it than I am, but I'm useless to society besides that. So I don't know anything about real estate because I'm not good at it and I don't like to do it. But in terms of news peg and understanding media, there are very few people in the world that are better at it than I am. But a news peg, again, is, why is it a story now? So if you're writing a book and it's not coming out for 2 years, that's not a news peg, but for media. But if your book's coming out in a month, that's a good story. That's a good reason to talk to you now. So just need a reason to talk to you now. So did you expand your real estate portfolio? Did you sell a big house? Did you launch a new project? Did new development get built? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. That's just media just needs a reason to talk to you. That's a news peg.
And so how do you structure stories where you'll have listeners or you'll have viewers?
That's another landing the plane question. So, okay. So none of this stuff matters. None of that. Here's what matters. None of this matters. This is all landing the plane stuff. Mindset, network, right opportunities. If you have the right mindset, creates the right network, creates the right opportunities, then none of this other stuff matters. So my mindset is at the very highest level, which has created the highest level network, which has created the right opportunities. I haven't done outbound sales in years. I just started this company. Just know you work with these type of people, leads to this. You collaborate and provide value to the highest level people, it leads to this. So the people at here, there's no...
Okay, so talk to me about your new company and the clients that you have on your roster right now in the real estate world. What kind of things are you working on with them, and what kind of value are you providing to those clients?
Yeah, so this is interesting because these questions, I'll answer it like this. So I only work with people with visionary abundance investment mindset. It doesn't matter what industry they're in. It doesn't matter how big the company is. It doesn't matter where they're located. That doesn't matter. So people with visionary abundance investment mindset, they're either running high 6-figure to 10-figure businesses. They see their families whenever they want to, and they do what they like to do and what they're good at, or they're going to be one of those people. They're not there yet, but they will be. So I've worked with clients in all verticals, all sizes, all locations. One of my clients in the past was the top luxury resort in the Midwest. That was White Company. And so Rush Creek Ranch, but it doesn't matter.
Okay. So then what matters in your eyes and your client's eyes? What is I'm sure many clients come to you with different problems, and you're trying to provide solutions for those problems, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the thing I hear over and over and over is we're tired of being the best kept secret out there. So they have this amazing company, have written a great book, or they've pivoted since COVID and they want to be in news at the highest level and get in front of the right eyeballs to create validity and credibility for the brand. That's what I hear over and over and over. So I'm currently working with the top speakers company in Africa. I just signed with a solopreneur in Australia. I'm working with the top HVAC company in the United States. They work with every Fortune 500 company. I'm working with a promotional marketing company that makes gifts for the holidays. I just signed with this incredible financial advisor in San Francisco. I signed with a toxicology lab in Hawaii. My company just solves the problem. So here again, I'm simplifier in patterns. All I do is simplify and see patterns. And so it's a very simple formula for creating a successful global company. This is all it is. You see a problem, you create a solution to problem solve, successful global company. So that's all my firm does. It just solves the problem. So it doesn't matter what you do. My company solves the problem.
So in the residential real estate brokerage world, have you worked with any real estate agents or real estate brokers or collective companies? And if so, what has their problem been, and what has the overall solution been in improving their communications to them?
Right. Good question. So without giving names, there's a West Coast giant. They create, let's say 7-figure plus condominiums and homes for super elite second homes, third homes. And so I help them as they expand their portfolio, get in the news. Yeah, it's not like it's not a realtor. Like someone asked me the other day, like, who do you work with? I go, well, the top 0.1% of mindsets in the world, because those are the folks that make the companies that hire the billions of people. And so by helping the very, very small few, it's actually helping the most. So, but again, it's when you have that mindset, the visionary abundance investment mindset, those are the folks that are changing the world and employing the billions of people. So, and creating these new technologies. So I'm talking to a guy who's, he's just in my network. His average deal is, 100 million real estate deal. So that's an average deal for him. I was talking to a 45-year-old up in Canada. He sold his company for nine figures. So he's bored. And so now he's writing VC, angel investor checks for $100K. He's looking for the next thing. And then he does a lot of stuff in real estate. So real estate's a good market because there's always reason to be in the news with that kind of stuff. So
sure. So let's talk about that $100 million customer in the real estate industry. It sounds like he's an investor. Does he buy portfolios of buildings or what does he do?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of, a lot of these folks, they're actually very shy, which is really interesting, but they like to be they're secretive about the deals that they work on. But yeah, mm-hmm. it's those type of high level deals that you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take that company, for example. They approached you, and what was the problem that they were looking a solution for?
Right. So those type of companies, it's the same thing. They want to be in news at a high level to create validity and credibility and get in front of the right eyeballs. So that's what I mean. Like someone asks, what do you cost or charge? They immediately go away because they're just looking at things in a transactional way. And so that's 99% of the population and most business owners. I just don't work with anyone like that. I just work with people that ask, what does an investment with you look like? And again, they know by being in the news or being on podcasts, I'll tell you about podcasts in a second, but being on podcasts, it's they'll get in front of the right people where they will meet the people that can create those next $100 million deal. And so what's very interesting is that podcasts are actually replacing mainstream media in terms of relevance and importance. So like Forbes just did a big article on me last week. Whatever. It was nice, but it's more vanity and ego. Podcasts like these are actually replacing mainstream media because of three reasons. One, the host is almost always an entrepreneur, so they're going to ask questions that a journalist would never ask. Two, you can do a deep dive on someone, you really get to know them. And then three, the audience is not as large quantity-wise, but quality-wise. They're not. A regular person's not going to listen to two visionaries talk about high-level $100 million real estate deal. I mean, maybe they will, but I doubt it. And so it's just a more qualified lead. And I hate the term funnel, but that's essentially what podcasts have become. They're a transactional and transformational platform for entrepreneurs. That's all podcasts are. So It's been very interesting to see that evolve. So it's a smart move by you having this.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun too.
Well, you get to learn so much too. I'm guessing you just learn so much, so many interesting things.
Absolutely. Well, I'm able to ask all the questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because as a journalist, I interviewed tens of thousands of people, and so I like asking the questions. I'm used to being on the other side of things now, but I'm the one who actually likes to ask the questions because I'm endlessly curious about people. So.
Yep. And so, in terms of vehicles that you're using to get somebody's story out there, whether it be digital media, print, television, podcast. I mean, talk to me a little bit about those vehicles that you're utilizing these days.
Yeah, that's another good question, man. Because most people don't ask that. Most people are like, "Hey, we just want to be in these particular things." I'm like, "Okay, I'm just telling you, nobody cares about that anymore." Again, podcasts are. I certainly, my firm certainly pitches to the Forbes, and my clients are in the Forbes and the U.S. News and World Report and those type of places. But the who's who are not reading those things anymore. They're listening to these podcasts. So, and essentially, because of the book I wrote, which came out in May, and I'm still doing 3 to 5 media interviews a week for it. I just did one in Australia yesterday. I'm doing one in Hong Kong tonight. I did one in Wales yesterday too. So Wales, Australia, Hong Kong. That's an interesting trio. But again, podcasts are replacing. They're replacing media. And so what has weirdly happened, I did not expect this, is that I've almost become like a gatekeeper for all these interviews. And the hosts are like, "Oh wait, you work with people like that? We want to interview them." And I'm like, okay, so it's great for my business and brand, and then it's great for my clients as well. And the other interesting thing is I've done 4 podcasts now where I've been the guest, and then the host signed with my firm. So it's actually direct. It's created direct business. There's another guy I'm going to introduce you to. He's in the real estate world. He's really good guy. He's based in Virginia, but he does multifamily investment, and he was annoyed because he was always the only African American in either who spoke at these events or was in the industry. So he created a business based on that, and so that he's working on some big deals. He'd be and he has a podcast, and I was on his podcast, and then now he's my client. So it's just been interesting to see that evolve. And so to directly answer your question, even though it was in a long-winded way, obviously still pitching to mainstream media, but podcasts are really, and it's just going to continue to evolve. Podcasts are basically they are creating their own industry of commerce with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree. It's when you put it into perspective, I think, and I'm sure it's more now, but I heard a stat that there's only like 1 million published podcasts out there, which is, such a small number.
It's going to be 5 million within a couple of years.
Right. I mean, it is. I would assume it's one of the fastest growing vehicles to get
100%
information out there, right?
So I did a podcast with this amazing entrepreneur in England. He's American, but he lives in London. And I just talked to him this morning. And he said so far it's at 180,000 downloads. And that's great. I'm happy for that. But then he's like, he and I'm sure are going to do business together. But that's what it is, because you get to it's almost like instead of talking to someone, you just interview them on a podcast, and then if your brains match, then here we go, let's do business together. And it's just endlessly interesting because you can do a long form interview. Not only does the host get to know about themselves, but the guest actually learns about themselves and actually refines and crafts their own message during the interviews. And then when you go out and just talk to people, you're just evolved in terms of how your message is because you've done so many interviews on podcasts. So there's just endless benefits to it. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, this was a product of the coronavirus quarantine.
Right. Okay. So that's brilliant that you just said that, because when COVID started in March, I'm like, oh, maybe this will destroy my business, right? I'm like, so it's been the opposite of that, because people with investment, abundance, visionary mindset, there's no panic. I know people that lost 90 to 95% of their business in 2 days. Whatever. They just pivoted and started their own business. The client Missing Link in Africa, they're in South Africa, they had a speaking company. So they booked speakers, they get speakers. You can't do it in person. So they created an entire global platform that teaches virtual and then how to make money from that after your speeches. And so they've had the biggest couple quarters they've ever had. So that's what I mean. Those are the only people I work with, because cost scarcity, it's nonsense to me. You just invest and pivot and figure it out.
As an entrepreneur, I feel that you have to learn how to pivot, because
entrepreneur life. Figure it out.
Entrepreneur life is not a straight line to
a straight line
success.
Right. So there's so here's a straight line. That would be funny. Wouldn't it be funny if it was a straight line? So people are like, so they're really happy for me, right? They're really happy. I'm like, well, you didn't see me at 3 a.m. when I had 0 clients and I'm cold sweat. But so again, I simplify and see patterns. So I have not met one of the very highest level entrepreneurs in the world. And I've talked to thousands of them since starting my company 3.5 years ago. And again, as a journalist, I interviewed the top people in the world. But so I have not met one entrepreneur at the highest level that has not overcome at least one of the following 4 things. Most are 2 or 3, and all 4 ones, they're the really successful ones. So here they are. Here are the 4 things. This is real entrepreneur life. 1, bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. 2, depression. 3, the highest level of anxiety you can imagine. And 4, likely and or possible traumatic experiences as a child or young adult. So that's entrepreneur life. So most people get a job or can't do entrepreneurship because they can't handle those things, but entrepreneurs can. They just figure it out. That's it.
Have you been a lifelong entrepreneur? I mean, you said you've been writing since you were 6 months old.
No. So I was always an entrepreneur, but I didn't know I was an entrepreneur until I started this company. And as a journalist, they gave me weird jobs. I was an entrepreneur. But so again, simplifying patterns. Usually people like me, we're aliens within our own family. Nobody understands us. We're aliens within our community. Nobody understands us. And then aliens within our own verticals. Nobody understands us. And so my quest is, what my company really is just a constant quest to find other aliens like me. And other aliens like me are the ones running the top companies in the world. That's pretty much what it is. So
what's one thing in the public relations communications world is very important that we haven't talked about that you want to say right now?
Man, so I'm a simplifier at the highest level. So pretty much hit the key things. Less is more. Less is more. Media does not have time to read a 2,000-word story. They'll write their own 2,000-word story, but they don't have time to read it. So just less is more. And I'm glad you asked that. So journalists are human beings, weird human beings for the most part, but still human. They have feelings, and so not treating them like humans is probably not a good strategy.
Well, we're going to conclude this episode with the hard-hitting questions. These are the questions that we ask at every one of our customers. The first question I always ask is, what is your why?
Yeah, so my dad died when I was 13, and my sons are 8 and 6, and the 8-year-old's already an entrepreneur, and the 6-year-old wants to be a Navy SEAL. And so I'm doing this to spend more time with them. So that's what I do.
I love that. A Navy SEAL at 6 years old, huh?
Yeah, so here's the book I'm reading them currently. So again,
which is a great segue, and let's make the next question the most recent book that's provided significant value to your life.
Oh God! Well, besides mine, but this one right here, Who Not How, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. Oh man, this is the rock star book, the best book I've read, and I don't say this lightly. I do not say this lightly because it's behind me. Blue Fishing by Steve Sims. Yep. Steve is a great man. Great man.
Somebody just recently plugged that book as well, and it's on my to-read list. I've heard it's great.
If you think I'm direct, Steve is me on steroids. I consider him a really good friend. I adore that guy. He was a bricklayer, and now he creates experiences for the greatest experiences you can imagine with people like Elton John and anything you could ever imagine. He's just a genius. So
cool. Give us a plug of your best-selling book.
Now here's this. So Chris Voss wrote the foreword. So anyone knows Never Split the Difference. Mm-hmm. It's a #1 international bestseller in 6 countries, #1 for entrepreneurship in the U.S. And so started this business with zero business background, didn't know what an LLC was, didn't know what a W-9 was. So now I have a global company that works with the top people in the world. So that's the company. The book is a step-by-step thing how I did that.
That's awesome. We'll be sure to plug that in the show notes.
Thanks, man.
Justin, how can our listeners learn a little bit more about you or get to know you a little bit more?
Sure. LinkedIn. I just passed 24,000 followers there. So Justin Breen on LinkedIn, and again, the book is called Epic Business. That's
great. And how do you pronounce your business again? Your brand?
That's so funny that's the last question. It's BrEpic.
BrEpic.
So many people BrEpic. Yeah, so many people spend like millions of dollars and months coming up with a name and a logo. It just popped into my head. On a trip up to Wisconsin. My wife surprised me for my 40th birthday, so I'm like, I'll just call my company BrEpic, and so here we are.
I love it.
Right.
Hey, Justin, it was great getting to know you a little bit more, and I'm sure we'll chat more down the road. And thanks so much for adding your value today. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, this was good stuff, and go Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs.
Thanks, man. That was great. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome.
Now you're in Chicago, the Chicagoland, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. What are you in?
Glenview, Northbrook area.
Glenview, Northbrook. Okay, so that's like northwest of downtown. Is that right?
So it's not directly north, but it's not like Schaumburg northwest. So it's kind of like, if you know where Evanston is or Deerfield, it's in that area.
Yeah. So. I get Northbrook and Oakbrook confused.
Oakbrook is west, Northbrook is north.
Right. Okay.
Oak Forest is south.
Gotcha.
Oak Park is west. There's a lot of oaks and a lot of parks.
A lot of oaks, yeah.
And brooks.
One of my best friends in college, a Mississippi State Bulldog, he was from Aurora, which is way out
Southwest.
Yeah, southwest. Yeah.
You wound up in Mississippi State too. That's interesting.
All right. So it was really nice chatting with you. Thanks so much again for the time, and we'll probably get this. I think we're like a week or two. So I try to keep the published episodes. You know, there's some that will drag out like 3 or 4 months. I try to keep it tight within 2 to 3 weeks maximum, because this industry is always ever changing. So.
It's constantly
right.
So here's what does not change. So technology gets faster and faster, microchips smaller. 2 things that don't change: 1, the power of relationships, and 2, storytelling. Whether we're painting things on cave walls or whatever, or doing things now, the value of stories never change. So,
yep. So I agree. Well, thanks for coming on, Justin. And
it was a lot of fun, man.
Look forward to staying in touch with you, and all the best through the holiday season.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave a rating and a review, which will help us introduce the podcast to other listeners. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which will give you access to other episodes you may have missed. Lastly, if you'd like to learn more about investing alongside us, then head on over to valueaddedpodcast.com. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.